Good morning, everybody. Welcome to more Drawin and Jawin. Back-to-back Dark Mac returns, or Dark Mac tonight. It's the Mac tonight returns. So we'll be working on more of that today. I finished the ink here, as you can see. You can watch the last video that I uploaded if you would like to see some process with that. I went ahead and started the watercolors on the cityscape, and then today I'll be filling in the watercolors for the rest of the panel. So a little tedious, but it shouldn't go too slow because there's not a lot going on in these panels. It's mostly just, they're essentially just portraits, I guess. They're just shoulders up, kind of news broadcasts or whatever. This one will probably get a little hairy, but as long as I keep track of what I'm doing, I'll be okay. That's what we'll be working on today. Not too much in the way of commercials, just the usual. My comic Gut and Ghost, buddy comedy about a pile of guts and a ghost. They're roommates, and their light goes out, and they have to try to change it or get a new source of light, and they have a series of non-answers and non-sequiturs, and it's very funny and gross, and you'll love it. Especially if you like cartoons from like the 90s, like Ren and Stimpy or Cow and Chicken and stuff like that. I also have After Frank Miller, which is probably more related to what we're doing here today. Basically, this is just a tribute zine where I cram a bunch of characters into the Dark Knight triumphant pose. Some not as expected as others, such as Sonic the Hedgehog. Some real life, mostly fictional. But yeah, little fan art tribute zine to Frank Miller. On the back I have a blank figure, so excuse me, if you do get a copy of this, please draw your own triumphant figure. Send it in to me. I'd love to see it. And then lastly, I also have Facebook, a zine of pen and ink portraits. This is my favorite thing to draw. I love drawing portraits to warm up. I mostly draw from photograph, but if I can, I will draw from real life. These are pretty much all pen and ink portraits. The first three are dip pen and brush pen, and then the rest are sourced from my sketchbooks, fountain pen drawings with the Pilot Pereira fountain pen. Again, mostly from photographs, some of them from news articles, or some from photographs I've taken or other people taken, like this one was a commission. But yeah, this is kind of my bread and butter, a little bit of the high art, a little bit of the low art. These were from life, actually. I did these at the Art Fields portrait competition a couple years ago. Actually, not even a couple years ago. That was earlier this year. Or was it? No, I don't remember when it was. But it was a lot of fun. I'll do it again. But yeah, you can get a copy of that. Check my Shopify. I'll have the link in the description. You can also get a copy of page 1 of the Dark Mac Tonight Returns fold-out zine. Comes free with the purchase of any of my books. So I just turn page 1 into a fold-out zine. You get to the end, unfold and flip over. Okay. You got it. Unfold. Flip over. Come on now. It always gets caught up here. But you see, and then you get the rest of the story. But yeah, this is a project that I find to be a lot of fun. A lot of commonalities between McDonald's and Batman. And again, good study of one of my favorite books of all time, The Dark Knight Returns. And, just how can we make it dumb? And that's always fun. If you don't already, please follow me on Instagram at scoon.art. You can keep up to date pretty more regularly than the sporadic posts I do here, which you have to admit I am getting better at. But anyway, let's get some coffee. I had to purchase some today because I had to get more beans. You get a free drip coffee with the beans. And break out our watercolors here. You know what I did forget to do is get a cup of water for the watercolors. Can't have watercolors without water. Okay. Got our trusty napkin here. And then I'm not, some watercolors and painting and all that stuff is not something I'm as comfortable with as I am drawing. I do like watercolors a lot because it does feel a lot like drawing, and I think some of it has to do with using one of these kind of Pentel, it's just like a water brush. You fill this reservoir with water, the tip stays wet so you can, you know, essentially dry dip it without going right to your water cup. So I like these pens a lot. They feel a lot like drawing, but with watercolors, so yeah, very beneficial. And then I might have to get out this page here so I can be consistent with the colors that I've used so far. Okay. Yes, we got like a blue there. Couple of things on the fire lately. I'm working on, I mentioned I'm working on my Crom anthology story, which I haven't touched in a few days, so that'll be next up on the docket soon. I have to make a drawing still for a gallery opening that's happening in November. The drop-off for the piece is at the end of this month. But it should be fun. Some local writers wrote some stuff, you know, like a little prose or a little poetry, just a little short, you know, kind of thing or whatever. You know, they wrote like a little piece. And then it was given to local artists to choose which piece they would like, and then you have to create a piece of art based on that writing, that original piece of writing. It's a fun way to, you know, kind of collaborate with people in your community without having to do all the hard social stuff. But, you know, it's also like kind of an icebreaker too, because now I'm kind of curious who wrote, you know, what I'm using as a source here, and I'm sure they're curious what someone's going to do with their, you know, with their piece. So, yeah, I thought that was a fun idea. And I'm looking forward to not only the exhibit, but working on it. I actually just got the composition for it worked out yesterday, so that's another thing that's on the docket for this week, is hammering that composition out on the big paper. I got it worked out in the sketchbook. I thumbnailed it yesterday. Had a good time doing that. Yeah, one of the things I like about this pen, this is a good example, is that, again, it stays wet. So when you do those kind of gradients, I guess, that you tend to do with watercolor, makes it a little bit easier to start really saturated, kind of wipe off your color, and then just use the natural, not natural, but, you know, the way it's designed. You know, it flows just like a fountain pen almost. It's a good pen, if I do say so myself, and then always Of course, wash in between colors if you can. Actually, I don't need to be in between colors yet. Still have a little bit of blue we gotta do. Okay. Where else do we got blue? Oh, we got a little bit of blue in Dawn's glasses here. So yeah, one of the things I guess I probably should have foreseen as a challenge is there are a variety of talking heads in The Dark Knight Returns. You know, it kind of does like kind of like a RoboCop style. You know, the way the information is presented to the audience, it's like filtered through the media. You know, kind of like how RoboCop cuts away to like news broadcasts or commercials every now and again. The movie, I mean. That's kind of like what The Dark Knight Returns does. So there's a wealth of news broadcasters and talking heads and commentators that pop up throughout the comic book, and I did not really consider how many there were. So I think like between page 1 and 2 there's actually 3 different commentators, and the decision I made for myself, because I'm like, well, it's just gonna get messy if I just start pulling, you know. So like these 2 people, Will and Dawn, are like YouTube personalities that I learned about on one of my podcasts or whatever. And I guess they have like a reputation online. People really hate them or something, but the gist of their channel is they travel, but they always like somehow wind up like eating at like McDonald's in like London, England. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're not going to France to get the escargot. They're going to wind up at the McDonald's, and you're going to have a video on their channel about their experience at the McDonald's in Paris, France. You know? So that's kind of their gist, and I figured that would be the perfect kind of commentators, news broadcasters, you know? So a lot of what I'm doing is I'm not pre-writing anything. I might get a couple of ideas for like, oh, who would be good as this character? Who would be good at that as that character? But it's just like broad stroke stuff. It's not, you know, I'm not planning anything. Part of the fun with this is just taking it a page at a time and then just kind of improvising a lot of those changes, you know? So it's going to have like an element of like jankiness to it, you know, or just kind of not fitting really, you know, or maybe jarring or something. But hopefully it's not too incoherent. Incoherent is probably the word I was looking for, actually. There's going to be some element of incoherence to it. But hopefully it's not going to be too bad. So what I did here, as this guy's technically supposed to be different from the guy on the first page that's talking about how everyone thought that Ronald McDonald burned to death at the last, but he only suffered superficial wounds. Anyway, it's supposed to be 3 different commentators, but I mashed them into one just for simplicity, because it didn't really make sense why we would go to a third one here, you know? And then I couldn't come up with like who that third one would be. So, yeah, that's my dumb little reasoning. All right. I was gifted this watercolor set a few years ago from a friend of mine. You know, people just accumulate crafts and stuff and you use them for a bit and then you stop using them. And I guess he was doing a little clean out of his stuff, and I was like, man, I haven't used this in a long time, so he gave it to me. And I really like it. It's like just a really, you know, compact watercolor set. It's Winsor Newton, you know, it just kind of folds up like so. And it's got a little thing here. So you can just throw it like in a bag. The cool thing about this, and I don't really use this feature, but it is a cool feature. You know, it has a little brush. That's actually not a bad brush. And then this here is a little canteen. You know, pops open at the top here. Fill it with water, and that way you always have water with you. Use that as your cup, so you have a portable watercolor set. And then you use the sponge here, just like you would a towel. But yeah, it's a really clever little watercolor set, and it's actually really good. I enjoy using it, not even as a travel one. I just break it out here on my table, and it works perfectly fine. And especially with this little brush, which, like, arguably, if you get like one of these little sets, I would say get one of these brushes too that have the water built in, you know. Still use the canteen and stuff, and you know, it's can't go wrong with two brushes, you know. So yeah, I like this little watercolor set. If I can find it on Amazon or something, I'll put a link to it in the description of the video. That's kind of more rosy, although we do probably want pretty rosy. We actually do want some of this color in here too. There we go. And then we do want a little bit of rosy. Not too rosy though. A little bit of rosy on the nose. Rosy nosy. Like you've been drinking a lot or something. And maybe make it go to the cheeks a bit. Oh, it might be too saturated. It's like a bunch of burst capillaries. that blue a little bit of depth. Put a little bit of orange in it. Make some of it recede. Now we can always go back in with more blue. But you go in with a little bit of the opposite, you can kind of get a little bit of a, you know, like a shadow or whatever. It helps it to recede. We'll put some more blue in there actually. Because we don't want it to look orange. We just want it to get darker. There we go. And we'll do the same thing on the brim. Just want a little bit like right there. There we go. And then let's get some more blue. Kind of bring that in a little more. There you go, that looks good. There we go. Oh, I like that. Now we got some yeller in the background here. It's kind of a paler yeller though. Probably kind of like this yeller. Definitely different than the sunset yeller. But we can always mute it a little bit if we need to, which I think we might. That might be the way to do it. You also don't really have to like squeeze this pen, you know, unless you want to get just like more water flow, which can sometimes be useful. Like say I want to pick up, but I usually just dip it if I have to do that, because sometimes squeezing it, like you almost lose a little bit of control, you know. It's always best to stay in control. I definitely got like a little bit of brown in that yellow. Maybe that brown. Yeah, I think so. How much of it though? Maybe like that. Oops. Kind of wipe it off and then just spread it out a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. You know what I was thinking too? I need to add some of this kind of orangey brown, really light. Maybe some of this. Just real expressive. Have it, just kind of trace it and give it some texture in that smoke. Oh, spill a little bit of water in there. The comic, it doesn't really have it colored, but like I feel like it would look, give it a little bit of character, and especially like when you get around some of these buildings, it would definitely help with like some of that push and pull, I think, by adding something a little bit light or darker, but also, you know, it's like a middle ground, because when it comes up to the sky here, you almost lose it. So you definitely need something in here to differentiate that from sky. And then we'll come back in and we'll see how it's still wet. You can always kind of dial it back with the paper towel, or even just go back in with a wet brush and no pigment on it. There we go. That way it's not quite as pronounced and you don't get like those little splotches. But still, you want some color in here, just not as tight as I had. You know, it's got to be a little bit more amorphous. There we go. I like that. Need a little bit in here too. Dip that one a little bit. I don't want it too yellow. But yeah, this the key that I'm finding in approaching this is I don't do a lot of colors, and it's, I mean, again, I'll be honest, it's because I'm not super comfortable with using colors a whole lot. I normally don't. But I will say this. What I'm finding, especially looking at somebody else's use of color, is that the simpler you can kind of keep things, and it works the same way with drawing too. Like I'm more learning the same thing with like looking at Frank Miller's, and well, I guess Frank Miller's, I'm not really looking at his pencils, but Klaus Jansen's inks on top of Miller's pencils. But you can, I mean, there's definitely a synergy between the two, and it'd be, at some point I would like to get like an artist edition of this book. So I could peep those pencils, but yeah, just like keeping it simple and not doing as many lines. I mean, I feel kind of stupid because it's like, duh, obviously don't do that. But at the same time, it's like, I really want to make lines. You know, it's very tempting to make. So one of the crazier thoughts I've had while doing this is I was like, boy, when I'm all done with Gut and Ghost, like what I should do on this part 2 of Gut and Ghost, since I'm approaching it a little bit more carefully than I was the first time, I guess. A little bit more planned, a little bit more careful. You know, maybe I try to establish more of a simplicity in style and not overhatch as much as I do. And then once I do that, I can go back and basically remaster the other pages. I think that would be kind of neat. You know, just hit it with the light box on another piece of Bristol board. Everything's there. You know, I don't have to come up with new compositions or anything. So it wouldn't be that bad, I don't think. But yeah, that was a crazy thought I had. And, you know, it stuck with me for a few days, so it might not be that crazy. I think definitely not something I'm going to start doing right now because I got too much on my plate right now, and I also think I haven't reached whatever vague conclusion I think I'm going to reach by attempting to kind of simplify the way I draw that comic and stuff. But I think ultimately, like, kind of cutting away, you know, instead of subtracting rather than addition is probably what I need, I would imagine. But what did I use to create this color here? It definitely looks like it starts with this and then it gets muted. Yeah, so we'll just kind of and then we'll put some, yeah, it's definitely like starts with that and then it gets way muted with some blues and stuff. There's something else in there. What did I put in there? Yeah, I think it's just that blue mixing with the umber or whatever that is. Oops, that's not blue. It's a piece of eraser. All right. Put a little bit more red in the, yeah, definitely needs like something to warm that up. It's got to be more of an orange actually. Get that once that dries. It's all right for now. this down, or at least, let me see if we can take some of that pigment out just by dabbing it. That could help. That helps a little bit. Wrong one. Do it and get too muddy. Definitely looks a little dissimilar than the last time I drew or painted her. Probably should have taken some notes on like what colors I use to mix and stuff, but that's all right. I got it on video this time, so I got no excuse for the future. I can come back and reference it anytime I like. That's pretty good. All right. This is supposed to be Drawin and Jawin, but unless I'm saying nonsense or narrating what I'm doing, I don't really have much to bring to the table. I don't watch the news or anything, so I don't know what's going on, really. Plus, I feel like that wouldn't be too fun to talk about. We're trying to escape those things, you know. Trying to go see Alien Romulus. I went to go see it last weekend, but you know, I bought like a ticket for 10 p.m. and by the time it rolled around, I had like a splitting headache and I was like really tired. So, you know, an hour before the show, I ended up just like refunding it. So I didn't go and see it yet, but I will be going to see that. I think I might try to just do it in the middle of the day or something. That might be the way to go and see it. Mostly just because I'm too scared. Just kidding, I'm not too scared. But no, I might be able to stay awake and actually like enjoy it. And the only downside to that is I always feel like I wasted a day if I go and see a movie in the middle of the day, because they don't do like morning shit. Like, it'd be great if you could just go at like first thing in the morning, 9 a.m. go see a movie, but I don't think they really do that. Like the only showings I see are like closer to noon, 1 o'clock sometimes. But I do want to go and see that movie. I've heard good things about it. Oops, got way too much pigment on there. Recede just a wee bit. Oh, excuse me. I forgot I was forgot I was on video there and I just let it rip. That was rather rude of me. I wonder if I can drop. No, I'm not going to drop the sound out. That was embarrassing and I should own it. Yeah, I farted. Hopefully that doesn't destroy my viewership. Literally 2 seconds is all it took was for me to forget that I was on camera. And that I shouldn't fart out loud or whatever. But I did it. And it's too late. So, oh well. Just a light wash of this kind of brown over here. Let's kind of stick to darker areas down here. Just allow that to spread out. Okay, beautiful. Green bag because we're at Whole Foods here. Gizmo. He's open in a drawer, whatever. He can get himself stuck in there. I'll get him out later. Go ahead and fill that in, because you know what? We can hit it with an opposite color and make it recede pretty easily. Let's hit some of this blue, mix it up over here. We don't need too much of it. Just a little bit of orange. That ought to be good. Oh yeah. I love the texture watercolor leaves on paper, because you're never getting like a smooth texture, you know? So the water kind of always wants to, or the color or whatever, always wants to pool wherever you kind of like lifted up your brush last. So you get kind of like a, I don't know, it's a little smeary, but I like cloudy looking kind of texture, I guess. I need to make her a little less muted here. And then possibly bring that down to soak in. Oh boy, that looks good. A little orange in the hair. And then we'll darken that up with that brown color. Oh, shoot, smeared it right across here, didn't I? That's all right. That'll get cleaned up digitally. No biggie. My internet's down and I need to get my reference photo of Michael Keaton. You know what, I'll save that for later. Some yellow in there too. lift pigment. How much time have we got? Oh, 1 hour 4. All right, we'll finish up the last couple of things here, and then we'll call it. And that's pretty much the method here. And I'll just finish up this color. Not too much else to report, and I've been pretty quiet here for a little bit. Probably to y'all's relief, I'm sure. All right. That ought to do it. And as always, I really appreciate anybody stopping by, giving a watch, giving a like, giving a comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram at schoon.art, SCHOON.ART. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Thank you.